Spilimbergo Open 2024 for Levy Rosman, aka GothamChess, is officially over because he just finished his round 9 game versus the 3-time Italian champion Alberto David, who is essentially the final boss, the strongest opponent Levy faced so far in the tournament, and also the only Grandmaster that he had to play against. And let's now go through this very exciting and yet short game. So Levy played c4. Before the start of the game, I briefed Levy about my previous encounter with Alberto. We played against each other in this year's French Team Chess Championships. Here, we were expecting that Levy's opponent is going to play e5. We had a very nice prep for that. So what happened is Alberto tried to get Levy out of the prep and play b6. Now, obviously, we were not ready for this, and this is something you never prepare for. So Levy played d4, bishop b7, and I suspect that Alberto simply attempted to either get Levy out of the prep or get some sort of a Queen's Indian defense, because he is a big fan of one of the most solid defenses the black can do against d4. So here what happened, knight c3, Levy decided to fight for the center, play e4, so he already was improvising right here, e6. E4 was a possibility, but here black will play bishop b4 to apply some pressure. There's some funny lines like bishop d3 f5, if you take it f5. There's bishop g2, so this was part of the Italians' plan. Levy played f3. That's a move I slightly do not like. I think if you want to play e4, you have to play e4 immediately. For example, here you can just play f3. But okay, I mean f3 is the move. e5, yeah, this was a very strange move by Alberto. So I was expecting either f5 or bishop b4, maybe even d5 is the move. So e5 feels like some sort of a gambit, maybe giving the vibes of the Budapest gambit against d4, d4, c4. Sometimes black plays d5. Let me just show it to you here. d4, knight f6, c4, e5. Yeah, there's such a gambit. Black sometimes plays knight g4 and has interesting dynamics, but the reputation is not very good of this line anyway. So he played e5, Levy played d takes on e5, and after knight c6, this was very instructive. He decided not to hold on to the pawn. So if he plays f4, Alberto will play d6, bishop d6, knight f3, knight f6, queen e7, and a long castle, and black has a very rich game. That's why Levy immediately gave up the pawn and played e4 and played f4. I was not sure about this move during the broadcast because I was doing the commentary on Levy's YouTube and Twitch channels at the same time, but still it gains space, so I can totally support it. Knight g6, knight f3, bishop c5. I was thinking maybe bishop b4 and knight f6 was a bit more challenging moves, but okay, bishop c5. Here, the Italian player was attempting to keep Levy from the possibility from casting short. a3, yeah, this was a bit strange. I was thinking, how about f5 here, hitting the knight here on g6, and after knight h4, now play bishop f4, maybe queen d2 or queen c2 and castle long with a very exciting game. But Levy's idea mainly was to play at some point maybe b4, kick away the bishop from the controlling the long diagonal, or like after a5, bishop d3, there are moments when black can no longer challenge the pawn on e4 because the knight on c3 is well protected. So this was pretty normal. Knight h6 was a bit odd move, but it clearly links this move towards with the move f5. Knight a4, yet another interesting move. So Levy was trying to get rid of the bishop so that he can safely castle short. I mean, most of the time Levy had a move f5 here available to him. So he was just not really feeling that he's going to do it. Bishop d6, hitting the pawn. I really like the move g3, even though it feels like it opens up the king side and slightly makes the king vulnerable. But the alternative e5 was a bit risky because this would open up this bishop. And then, for example, after bishop e7 and d6 and f6, here Alberto could generate some counterplay against Levy's center. So g3 was played, should castle, and bishop c6. That's a move I felt it was pretty weird. And I was wondering, why not f5? So this was looking really good. And apparently, indeed, if I will play e5 here, then bishop c5, black is getting quite enough of counterplay. But actually, the thing here is that after f5, I'm not sure if both of the opponents saw this, but apparently there's a very strong c5 move. So with the c5 move here, the point is, if you take on c5 here, there's queen b3 check, you see you're losing the bishop, which essentially is the key idea of this maneuver. And if you go back bishop e7, now white plays queen c2. hitting the knight, which is very difficult to defend. For example, bishop f3, rook f3, knight e4, this queen c4 check. You're just losing the knight. Also, it's worth mentioning that immediately queen c2 quite doesn't work, because then black plays queen f6. But if you include c5 immediately, there's no queen f6 anymore, and there's no knight e7 to protect the knight on f5. So it didn't happen, and instead, the Italian played bishop c6, I guess wanting to play bishop c5 on f5. Levy played this very cool move, king g2, which just as well might be the best move Levy played in the tournament. So he improved his position without making any big commitments. Rook e8, I think it was a positional mistake by David here. He should have played something like a5. There's no more c5 anymore because the bishop is not standing on b7. And now, I'm not sure what Levy would have done here. Maybe just knight c3, keep the position together. F takes, bishop e4, bishop e4, knight e4, knight f5. So Levy's definitely better because black has pretty awkward pieces. Especially the knight on g6 doesn't do much, so I could play queen e3, bishop d2, bishop c3, rook e1, and simply enjoy the better prospects. So what happened is that the Italian kept misplaying the position. Rook e8, he hit the pawn here, and essentially he got to a position with no pawn play whatsoever. f5 was not looking likely to happen anymore. c6, d5, or b5 were simply impossible. So his position quickly deteriorated, and Levy built up a very nice position. h3, this was a very powerful move actually. I was not sure I would do this if I was playing myself. I was considering queen c2, bishop d2, and rook e1. But after queen c2, suddenly there's knight g4. There's knight a3 check, and I'm pretty sure that Levy looked at this position briefly, and he was not sure why would I want to give up the dark square bishop. That's why here he played h3. I'm not sure if I would do this, like I already said, because what essentially is happening here is that Levy is a bit behind the development. And when you're making such slow moves and also weakening a bit the surroundings around your king, you need to make sure that your opponent cannot punish it with any pawn breaks. And I'm pretty sure that Levy did this. He made sure there's no f5, there's no d5, there's no b5. But then again, Levy needs to make like 3 moves to make his development complete. So what happened here, Alberto played f6, which is the start of the end, because if he plays so passive, his position cannot hold together. Levy played bishop d2, queen c2, rook e1, and d6. Here, essentially, the Italian 3-time champion decided to play passive and see what happens and hope that if Levy is not going to play the position correctly, then he's going to have some counter chances. Levy played a couple of easy moves like knight e5, rook b8, and bishop c3. No need to rush. So at this moment, Levy was super confident. And here, bishop d7 was played by Italian. Well, apparently here the engines say there was a killing blow here, bishop takes on f6. I'm not sure I even understand this move. The point is after g takes on f6, there's a, I guess, oh my goodness, it's e5. Yeah, this is difficult. I was looking at this, I was thinking about queen c3, but then again after king g7 and c6, I quite didn't see the follow-up. This is a very difficult sequence. Bishop f6, g takes on e5, with the idea to play bishop g6, queen g6, and knight f6. I would just say either you see such moves or you don't. Like Levy's bishop takes on h4 a couple of rounds ago against Nikhil. So what happened here, Levy played a very human move e5, attempting to open up the position, which of course makes perfect sense because he's perfectly ready for the break. Black is very passive, and here the Italian grandmaster immediately crumbled under the immense pressure. He had to play f takes on e5. I suppose f takes on e5, and play something like d takes on e5. So here, White has a couple of very tempting combinations like take on g6 and queen g6, or White could even play h4, especially favored by engines with h5, kill the knight, then take on h7. Things just look so bleak for black. And when here Alberto saw all of these options, he decided to play queen c8, counterattack the pawn on h3, and now this just tactically fails. White has a number of ways to win this game. During the broadcast, I was suggesting e6 with some cool ideas. For example, bishop e6, you can sacrifice the exchange. You play f5 and just collect everything on your path. Rook e6 would be quite similar. Now you can just take on e6 and play... Oh, wait, sorry. I think it was f5, takes, and now there's no knight e5 because there's a fork on e7. So Levy chose something else. He took on g6, which is a very cool move. This check changes nothing. And now the point is, if bishop f1 would happen here, Levy can just play bishop h7, king f8, and just take on f1. That's it. 2 minor pieces for the rook. Knight h4, knight g6 is incoming, e takes and f6 is incoming, so black is completely toast. So what happened is that Alberto took on g6, queen g6 is winning as well, knight f6 is just cooler, and Levy is cool of course, so he took on f6. The point is, Black has to take. If he goes king f8, the simplest way to win this is queen g6. This is a mate on the board. Queen g7, you cannot defend it. By the way, something like this happened in the game. But there was also this trick. If after queen g6, bishop takes on f1, Levy had to be accurate and not take on f1. Because now you're going to fall for rook e2 check, king h1, and queen h3. So the key here is that after bishop takes on f1, he would have found knight h7 check, or only now take rook f1. And then resume the ideas with either knight f6, knight e8, or knight g5, queen h7, having, or e6, queen g7, completely winning position. Actually, maybe I could have played e6 immediately, so it doesn't really matter. The position is winning. So what happened is that Alberto took on f6, queen g6. You have to go f8 because king h8 is, again, just dropping the game immediately. Yeah, queen f6, e6 with the mate on g7 is immediately incoming, so it's not a solution. King f8, and the final trick is queen g4. So here Alberto was hoping that Levy is going to play something like knight g5 with the idea to play queen g7 checkmate. Apparently here black is still okay after queen takes on e2, king h3, and the only move, knight g5. So there's some crazy lines here, king h4, queen h2, king takes on g5, queen g3, and somehow this is a draw. But, you know, no funny business in a winning position, so why would Levy do that? Just give queen g7, just force black to trade the queens, and then after king h3, have 2 extra pawns in a completely winning position. So what happened is that after queen g7, Alberto accepted the defeat. This allowed Levy to score the best, the most important, impressive victory of the Spielberger Open, essentially erasing the rating deficit that he had in the tournament, and finishing the tournament on a very positive note, but also gaining a lot of confidence. I would like to thank everybody who was following us live. I was doing the coverage on Levy's YouTube, Twitch, and Twitch channels. So we are going to continue working together. I've been working together with Levy starting this May of this year. There's a lot of things that we still need to do. So enjoy this and come back for more coverages. I think I'm going to do one more video at some point later about the top 10 moments that Levy had in Spielberger Open. But in the meantime, see you soon.